Video 4. If I go back to mine own country, that is prepared for fire and brimstone, and I shall certainly perish there. If I can go to the celestial city, I am sure to be in safety there. I must venture. To go back is nothing but death. To go forward is fear of death, and life everlasting beyond it. I will yet go forward. So Mistrust and Timorous ran down the hill, and Christian went on his way. But thinking again of what he had heard from the men, he felt in his bosom for his scroll, that he might read therein and be comforted. But he felt and found it not. Then was Christian in great distress, and knew not what to do. For he wanted that which used to relieve him, and that which should have been his pass into the celestial city. Here, therefore, he began to be much perplexed, and knew not what to do. At last he bethought himself that he had slept in the arbour that is on the side of the hill, and, falling down upon his knees, he asked God's forgiveness for that foolish fact, and then went back to look for his scroll. But all the way he went back, who can sufficiently set forth the sorrow of Christian's heart? Sometimes he sighed, sometimes he wept, oftentimes he chided himself for being so foolish to fall asleep in that place, which was erected only for a little refreshment from his weariness. Thus, therefore, he went back, carefully looking on this side and on that, all the way as he went, if happily he might find the scroll that had been his comfort so many times in his journey. He went thus till he came again in sight of the arbour where he sat and slept, but that sight renewed his sorrow the more, by bringing again, even afresh, his evil of sleeping unto his mind. Thus, therefore, he now went on, bewailing his sinful sleep, saying, O wretched man that I am, that I should sleep in the daytime, that I should sleep in the midst of difficulty, that I should so indulge the flesh as to use that rest for ease to my flesh, which the Lord of the hill hath erected, only for the relief of the spirit of pilgrims. How many steps have I took in vain? Thus it happened to Israel. For their sin they were sent back again by the way of the Red Sea, and I am made to tread those steps with sorrow, which I might have trod with delight, had it not been for this sinful sleep. How far might I have been on my way by this time? I am made to tread those steps thrice over, which I needed not to have trod but once. Yea, now also I am like to be benighted, for the day is almost spent. Oh, that I had not slept! Now by this time he was come to the arbour again, where for a while he sat down and wept, but at last, as Providence would have it, looking sorrowfully down unto the settle, there he espied his scroll, the which he, with trembling and haste, catched up and put it into his bosom. But who can tell how joyful this man was when he had gotten his scroll again? For this scroll was the assurance of his life and acceptance of the desired haven. Therefore he laid it up in his bosom, gave thanks to God for directing his eye to the place where it lay, and with joy and tears betook himself again to his journey. But oh, how nimbly did he go up the rest of the hill! Yet before he got up, the sun went down upon Christian, and this made him again recall the vanity of his sleeping to his remembrance, and thus he again began to condole with himself. O thou sinful sleep, how for thy sake am I like to be benighted in my journey? I must walk without the sun, darkness must cover the path of my feet, and I must hear the noise of the doleful creatures because of my sinful sleep. Now also he remembered the story that Mistrust and Timorous told him, how they were frighted with the sight of the lions. Then said Christian to himself again, These beasts range in the night for their prey, and if they should meet with me in the dark, how should I shift them? How should I escape them by being torn in pieces?" Thus he went on his way. But whilst he was bewailing his unhappy miscarriage, he lifted up his eyes, and behold, there was a very stately palace before him, the name of which was Beautiful, and it stood by the highway side. So I saw in my dream that he made haste and went forward, that if possible he might get lodging there. Now before he had gone far, he entered into a very narrow passage, which was about a furlong off the porter's lodge, and looking very narrowly before him as he went, he espied 2 lions in the way. "Now," thought he, "I see the dangers that mistrust and timorous were driven back by." The lions were chained, but he saw not their chains. Then he was afraid, and thought also himself to go back after them, for he thought nothing but death was before him. But the porter at the lodge, whose name is Watchful, perceiving that Christian made a halt, as if he would go back, cried unto him, saying, "Is thy strength so small? Fear not the lions, for they are chained, and they are placed there for trial of faith where it is, and for discovery of those that have none. Keep in the midst of the path, and no hurt shall come unto thee." Then I saw that he went on, trembling for fear of the lions, taking good heed to the directions of the porter. He heard them roar, but they did him no harm. Then he clapped his hands and went on till he came and stood before the gate where the porter was. Then said Christian to the porter, "Sir, what house is this, and may I lodge here tonight?" The porter answered, "This house was built by the Lord of the hill, and he built it for the relief and security of pilgrims." The porter also asked whence he was and whither he was going. Christian said, "I am come from the city of destruction, and am going to Mount Zion. But because the sun is now set, I desire, if I may, to lodge here tonight." "What is your name?" said the porter. "My name is now Christian, but my name at the first was Graceless. I came of the race of Japheth, whom God will persuade to dwell in the tents of Shem." The porter said, "But how does it happen that you come so late that the sun is set?" "I had been here sooner," replied Christian, "but that, wretched man that I am, I slept in the arbour that stands on the hillside. Nay, I had, notwithstanding that, been here much sooner, but that in my sleep I lost my evidence and came with it to the brow of the hill, and then feeling for it and finding it not, I was forced with sorrow of heart to go back to the place where I slept my sleep, where I found it, and now I am come." The porter said, "Well, I will call out one of the virgins of this place, who will, if she likes your talk, bring you in to the rest of the family, according to the rules of the house." So Watchful, the porter, rang a bell, at the sound of which came out of the door of the house a grave and beautiful damsel, named Discretion, and asked why she was called. The porter answered, "This man is in a journey from the city of destruction to Mount Zion, but being weary and benighted, he asked me if he might lodge here tonight. So I told him I would call for thee, who, after discourse had with him, mayest do as seemeth thee good, even according to the law of the house." Then she asked him whence he was and whither he was going, and he told her. She asked him also how he got into the way, and he told her. Then she asked him what he'd seen and met with in the way, and he told her. And at last she asked his name. So he said, "It is Christian, and I have so much the more a desire to lodge here tonight, because, by what I perceive, this place was built by the Lord of the Hill for the relief and security of pilgrims." So she smiled, but the water stood in her eyes, and after a little pause she said, "I will call forth 2 or 3 more of the family." So she ran to the door and called out, "Prudence, Piety, and Charity," who, after a little more discourse with him, had him into the family. And many of them, meeting him at the threshold of the house, said, "Come in, thou blessed of the Lord. This house was built by the Lord of the Hill on purpose to entertain such pilgrims in." Then he bowed his head and followed them into the house. So when he was come in and sat down, they gave him something to drink, and consented together that, until supper was ready, some of them should have some particular discourse with Christian, for the best improvement of time, and they appointed Piety, Prudence, and Charity to discourse with him. And thus they began. Piety said, "Come, good Christian, since we have been so loving to you to receive you into our house this night, let us, perhaps, if we may better ourselves thereby, talk with you of all the things that have happened to you in your pilgrimage." "With a very good will," said Christian, "and I am glad that you are so well disposed." Piety asked, "What moved you at first to betake yourself to a pilgrim's life?" "Ah, I was driven out of my native country by a dreadful sound that was in mine ears, to wit, that unavoidable destruction did attend me if I abode in that place where I was." Piety said, "But how did it happen that you came out of your country this way?" Christian said, "It was as God would have it, for when I was under the fears of destruction, I did not know whither to go, but by chance there came a man even to me, as I was trembling and weeping, whose name is Evangelist, and he directed me to the wicket gate, which else I should never have found, and so set me into the way that hath led me directly to this house." Piety said, "But did you not come by the house of the interpreter?" "Yes, I did," said Christian, "and did see such things there, the remembrance of which will stick by me as long as I live, especially 3 things, to wit, how Christ, in despite of Satan, maintains his work of grace in the heart, how a man had sinned himself quite out of hopes of God's mercy, and also the dream of him that thought in his sleep the day of judgment was come." Piety said, "Why, did you hear him tell his dream?" "Yes," said Christian, "and a dreadful one it was. I thought it made my heart ache as he was telling of it, but yet I am glad I heard it." "Was this all you saw at the house of the interpreter?" said Piety. "No," said Christian. "He took me and had me where he showed me a stately palace, and how the people were clad in gold that were in it, and how there came a venturous man and cut his way through the armed men that stood in the door to keep him out, and how he was bid to come in and win eternal glory. Methought those things did ravish my heart. I would have stayed at that good man's house a 12-month, but that I knew I had further to go." Piety said, "And what saw ye else in the way?" "Saw?" said Christian. "Why, I went but a little further, and I saw one, as I thought in my mind, hang bleeding upon a tree, and the very sight of him made my burden fall off my back, for I groaned under a heavy burden, but then it fell down from off me. 'Twas a strange thing to me, for I never saw such a thing before. Yea, and whilst I stood looking up, for then I could not forbear looking, 3 shining ones came to me. One of them testified that my sins were forgiven me. Another stripped me of my rags, and gave me this broidered coat which you see. And the third set the mark which you see in my forehead, and gave me this sealed scroll. And with that he plucked it out of his bosom. Piety replied, But you saw more than this, did you not? Christian said, The things that I have told you were the best, yet some other matter I saw, as namely, I saw 3 men, simple, sloth, and presumption, lie asleep, a little out of the way as I came, with irons upon their heels. But do you think I could awake them? I also saw formality and hypocrisy come tumbling over the wall to go, as they pretended, to Zion. But they were quickly lost, even as I myself did tell them, but they would not believe. But above all, I found it hard work to get up this hill, and as hard to come by the lions' mouths. And truly, if it had not been for the good man, the porter that stands at the gate, I do not know but that, after all, I might have gone back again. But now I thank God I am here, and I thank you for receiving me. Then Prudence thought, it would be good to ask him a few questions, and desired his answer to them. She said, Do you not think sometimes out of the country from whence you came? Yes, said Christian, but with much shame and detestation. Truly, if I had been mindful of that country from whence I came out, I might have had opportunity to have returned. But now I desire a better country, that is, a heavenly one. Prudence said, Do you not yet bear away with you some of the things that then you were conversant withal? Yes, he said, but greatly against my will, especially my inward and carnal cogitations, with which all my countrymen, as well as myself, were delighted. But now all those things are my grief, and might I but choose mine own things, I would choose never to think of those things more. But when I would be a doing of that which is best, that which is worst is with me. Prudence said, Do you not find sometimes as if those things were vanquished, which at other times are your perplexity? Yes, said Christian, but that is but seldom. But they are to me golden hours in which such things happen to me. Can you remember, asked Prudence, by what means you find your annoyances at times as if they were vanquished? Christian said, Yes, when I think what I saw at the cross, that will do it. And when I look upon my broidered coat, that will do it. And when I look into the scroll that I carry in my bosom, that will do it. And when my thoughts wax warm about whither I am going, that will do it. Prudence said, And what is it that makes you so desirous to go to Mount Zion? Christian said, Why, there I hope to see him alive that did hang dead on the cross, and there I hope to be rid of all those things that to this day are in me, an annoyance to me. There, they say there is no death, and there I shall dwell with such company as I like best. For, to tell you truth, I love him because I was by him eased of my burden, and I am weary of my inward sickness. I would fain be where I shall die no more, and with the company that shall continually cry, Holy, holy, holy. Then said Charity to Christian, Have you a family? Are you a married man? Christian, I have a wife and 4 small children. And why did you not bring them along with you? Said Charity. Then Christian wept and said, Oh, how willingly would I have done it, but they were all of them utterly averse to my going on pilgrimage. Charity said, But you should have talked to them, and have endeavoured to show them the danger of being behind. Christian replied, "So I did, and told them also what God had shown to me of the destruction of our city. But I seemed to them as one that mocked, and they believed me not." "And did you pray to God that he would bless your counsel to them?" said Charity. "Yes," said Christian, "and that with much affection, for you must know that my wife and poor children were very dear to me." Charity: "But did you tell them of your own sorrow and fear of destruction? For I suppose that destruction was visible enough to you." "Yes," said Christian, "over and over and over. They might also see my fears in my countenance, in my tears, and also in my trembling under the apprehension of the judgment that did hang over our heads. But all was not sufficient to prevail with them to come with me." Charity said, "But what could they say for themselves, why they came not?" "Why, my wife was afraid of losing this world," he said, "and my children were given to the foolish delights of youth. So, what by one thing and what by another, they left me to wander in this manner, alone." Charity said, "But did you not, with your vain life, damp all that you by words used by way of persuasion to bring them away with you?" Christian nodded. "Indeed, I cannot commend my life, for I am conscious to myself of many failings therein. I know also that a man by his conversation may soon overthrow what by argument or persuasion he doth labour to fasten upon others for their good. Yet this I can say, I was very wary of giving them occasion by any unseemly action to make them averse to going on pilgrimage. Yea, for this very thing, they would tell me I was too precise, and that I denied myself of things for their sakes, in which they saw no evil. Nay, I think I may say, that if what they saw in me did hinder them, it was my great tenderness in sinning against God, or of doing any wrong to my neighbour." Charity replied, "Indeed, Cain hated his brother because his own works were evil, and his brother's righteous. And if thy wife and children have been offended with thee for this, they thereby show themselves to be implacable to good. Thou hast delivered thy soul from their blood." Now I saw in my dream that thus they sat talking together until supper was ready. So when they had made ready, they sat down to meat. Now the tables were furnished with fat things, and with wine that was well refined, and all their talk at the table was about the Lord of the hill, as, namely, about what he had done, and wherefore he did what he did, and why he had builded that house. And by what they said, I perceived that he had been a great warrior, and fought with and slain him that had power over death, but not without great danger to himself, which made me love him all the more. For, as they said, and as I believe, said Christian, he did it with the loss of much blood. But that which put the glory of grace into all he did was that he did it out of pure love to his country. And besides, there were some of them of the household that said they had been and spoke with him since he did die on the cross, and they have attested that they had it from his own lips, that he has such a love for pilgrims. The like is not to be found from the east to the west. They, moreover, gave an instance of what they affirmed, and that was, he had stripped himself of his glory, that he might do this for the poor, and that they heard him say and affirm that he would not dwell in the mountain of Zion alone. They said, moreover, that he made many pilgrims princes, though by nature they were beggars born, and their original had been the dunghill. Thus they discoursed together till late at night, and after they had committed themselves to the Lord for their protection, they betook themselves to rest. The pilgrim they laid in a large upper chamber, whose window opened towards the sun rising. The name of the chamber was Peace, where he slept till break of day, and then he awoke and sang. Where am I now? Is this the love and care of Jesus for the men that pilgrims are, thus to provide that I should be forgiven, and dwell already the next door to heaven? So in the morning they all got up, and after some more discourse, they told him that he should not depart till he had shown him the rarities of that place. And first they had him into the study, where they showed him records of the greatest antiquity, in which, as I remember my dream, they showed him the pedigree of the Lord of the Hill, that he was the son of the Ancient of Days, and came by that eternal generation. Here also was more fully recorded the acts that he had done, and the names of many thousands that he had taken into his service, and how he had placed them in such habitations that could neither by length of days nor decays of nature be dissolved. Then they read to him some of the worthy acts that some of his servants had done, and how they had subdued kingdoms, wrought righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, waxed valiant in fight, and turned to flight the armies of the aliens. Then they read again another part of the records of the house, where it was shown how willing their Lord was to receive into his favour any, even any, though they in time past had offered great affronts to his person and proceedings. Here also were several other histories of many other famous things, of all which Christian had a view, as of things both ancient and modern, together with prophecies and predictions of things that have their certain accomplishment, both to the dread and amazement of enemies, and the comfort and solace of pilgrims. The next day they took him and had him into the armoury, where they showed him all manner of furniture which their Lord had provided for pilgrims, as sword, shield, helmet, breastplate, prayer book, and shoes that would not wear out. And there was here enough of this to harness out as many men for the service of their Lord, as there be stars in the heaven for multitudes. They also showed him some of the engines with which some of his servants had done wonderful things. They showed him Moses' rod, the hammer and nail with which Jael slew Sisera, the pitchers, trumpets, and lamps too, with which Gideon put to flight the armies of Midian. Then they showed him the ox's goad, wherewith Shamgar slew 600 men. They showed him also the jawbone with which Samson did such mighty feats. They showed him moreover the sling and stone with which David slew Goliath of Gath, and the sword also with which their Lord will kill the man of sin in the day that he shall rise up to the prey. They showed him besides many excellent things, with which Christian was much delighted. This done, they went to their rest again.